Okay, so let's restart from the point we stopped, which was this graph to show something that Kardec tried to explain with the help of at least two different spirits. The spirit Arago and the spirit Dr. Very the name in a second. Just a technical problem. But anyway, Kardec received the help of two spirits, so two psychologists, that analyzed it and tried to understand how the evolution of worlds happened. Actually, we have some explanations about this in one of his works, actually, the Gospel according to Spiritism, where he talks about the different categories of worlds according to their moral evolution. But in summary, what Kardec explains is that the evolution happens in two different kind of, I would say, paces. So sometimes the evolution of humanity happens in a very slow pace, sometimes in a very rapid pace, and this throughout the time. So what we have is, would be, if you could summarize in a very simple way, would be could say that's almost a stair, right, with different steps. And then we have between the steps those jumps. So basically periods of time, very short periods, where we have a very great, very important contribution of many different ways to the evolution of humanity. So we have from all the different kinds of branches and areas of the human knowledge, from scientific to philosophical to moral perspectives, and then all these together contribute to accelerate the evolution of humanity in very short periods of time that are separated by those less rapid periods, less rapid moments. And this is what we call evolution. But evolution is actually a process within a law of progress. And this is one of the laws that Spiritism teaches. One of the God's law, actually. And then to explain mathematically this, we express it in an equation. So the mathematician here is Denis. So, but basically to explain, P is the progress. Am I correct? Yeah. 8 is the humanity, and W is free will. So progress is a function of the free will of humanity. Am I right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm good. I'm okay with my knowledge from that. So this is what Kardec said. The progress of a world is a function of the free will of all the human beings living in that world. So when we say that Earth is evolving to another category of world, and we will see all the categories in a bit, so we are saying also that all the people, at least in general, are contributing to this process. And in summary, we are saying that all of us can contribute to this overall process. So if we are part of the humanity, so this is also a function of, we could say, the sum of all the free wills of all of us, of the free wills of all of us. So we all are part of this process. From that period, when we were like monkeys, so not monkeys, but primitive early humans, until today, where we are now constructing the future. And the progress, this law of progress, happens in two different ways. In a physical way, so the physical progress of the world, when we have all the physical events happening on the Earth, like the geological events, the climate events, the biological events, all of them helping to construct, to build our world. creating land, creating masses of water, creating all kinds of features that we see on our world that also contribute to our moral progress. So even when we have some dramatic change in all those conditions, they are necessary for our evolution. When we have some catastrophic event, for example, sometimes they make us act in a different way. When we have like an earthquake or something like that, we don't see only the people that are dying. We see the people that are saving lives. So these are the two aspects of this physical progress interacting with the moral progress. And even the moral progress can be subdivided together. We have the contribution of the intelligence to this moral progress, the moral sense, and the manners. So basically the cultural part of this moral progress. So all these three are essential to make the development of the moral aspect of our globe. Let's say, who are the main contributors to this process? The spirits in space, who are God's ministers. This is interesting. This is, where is this Denis? In heaven and hell, I guess?
Yes, Heaven and Hell, definitely. Chapter 3.
Yes, okay. So this is another book written by Kardec, as we explained in that tree before, that we explained in the books of Kardec. And this is, we try to create a picture to represent this explanation. So basically, we have God at the very top of this hierarchical organization of the beings that we have in the universe. Then we have a Supreme Council of Spirits. So those spirits in the Supreme Council, they are totally out of our comprehension in terms of evolution. So we cannot even define them. Then we have the superior heads, or the superior bosses, directing galaxies, solar systems, and specific planets. So Jesus, who are Jesus? Who is Jesus? Is the biggest example of some spirit that came to Earth. Jesus is in the second level of this pyramid. Then we have the spirits entrusted with nations, people's families, individuals. With PG Earth, that second one. Spirits charged to push forward some special branch of progress, so some art, some science, some philosophy, or any point of the knowledge. And spirits committed to supervise the various operations of nature. So all the natural processes that are happening on Earth, like all those geological processes that we study so much in our research. So then we have this hierarchy of all these spirits contributing to this process in any group. And for our planet, an immense progress still remains. Because in terms of intelligence, we are fine, we are okay, because we have, as Denis mentioned earlier, lots of advancements in our humanity, in our civilization. We came to a level that we couldn't realize probably 10 years ago. Like if you see the evolution of a single stuff, like a cell phone, from 10 years ago until today, is definitely unpredictable from from ourselves 10 years ago. In terms of manners, in terms of culture, we definitely progressed really well. But in terms of moral sense, we are still pending in terms of charity, fraternity, and union. In the Portuguese translation, it was used the word solidarity instead of union. But there are basically three things that, what Kardec is trying to say, three things that are missing to us. And those three things must be our goals.
And this is maybe a picture somehow depressing, yeah. But we have to look at this knowing that the evolution occurs in an exponential way. So you build the next evolution, the next change based on you have now. So let's look at the intelligence part of technology. So we build the next generation of cell phones and computers based on the cell phones and computers that we have now, and the next one based on the other one, and that's it. So we have the power that we develop now is going to be used to create a greater power. So it's an exponential one. Not a linear pattern, but exponential. So every little step is a huge step. And in the other two also. So if you progress a little bit, this is multiplied, so it's an exponential effect there. That a single step is converted into a really huge jump. So that's why we have this jump and stairs. Because if you do something here, we have spirits doing the same thing in different parts of the world. So this is the jump in the progress. We do our small steps here and combine it with the global picture, so the big picture, then we include in this sense of the jump.
And to show that this theory of the step that I proposed, not with these words, we are trying to use some words to explain better, not better than Kardec, but better than we could explain from Kardec's explanations. To explain this step thing, so we would like to show you from the ancient ages some of those steps. For example, our, let's say, species started 200,000 years before Christ. So 298,000 years before. 202,000 years before us. So basically around that time, our species started, the Homo sapiens. Then around 130,000 years later, we came with the earliest religions known. Because we can find something new. I was looking, for example, that 30,000 years before Christ, we had the first, I guess, the first expressions of art, and I guess a couple of weeks or 3 weeks ago, it was discovered something more, something older than that, I guess 50,000 years. So science is always reviewing itself. And for example, 10,000 years before Christ, we had the invention of agriculture and the domestication of animals.
Which was great, because then we could establish a place to live, and not to flee as we were doing before that. So agriculture was really great, because then, using that, we could build more complex societies. Stay in a place and work with the land that was given there, and establish more complex societies, from families, tribes, and so on, in the sense of living together.
And then we have, like, just 4,000 years BC, 6,000 years ago, we had the invention of writing, which is a so basic thing that we use every day, writing, not only on paper, but also on the computer, and the cell phones, that we even don't care maybe about the invention of this. We probably don't even know the existence of writing. Then we came to the organized civilization, 3,500 years BC, and finally, at least in this timeline, 1,400 years BC, we have the beginning of monotheism with Moses, mainly. So if you see this timeline, you probably see isolated events, right? Because we use the dots to just represent them in this timeline, but they're actually, we would say, combined or related to each other. Because if you see, for example, the beginning of agriculture and domestication of animals, as Denis said, allowed the creation of cities, of communities, familiar communities, then small villages, then cities, and this allowed the creation of the organized civilization. So they are all related to each other.
Even the writing. So imagine that we are in the early ages of civilization, not organized civilization, but in the early ages of civilization, not organized at all. So we were living in caves. Let's just imagine that we're living in caves. Then and caves. And then we have to look for food for our own survival. If we have to do that every day, we have no time for writing, we have no time for love, yes. We have no time for education, we have no time for that. After having a safe production or a safe storage of food, then we have time to do education, to create writing, even inventing new tools, because now we are sure that tomorrow we will have food for our own survival. And imagine that without this, so this is really like a building, so we are having the building blocks for something better that is going to happen, to appear. And it depends, so we are dependent on the past, basically. And we can learn from that. So imagine that now that we have internet, television, and that we have instant messaging, what is the greater good that we are going to develop in the future? Given that we have now more tools to effectively live, make decisions, improve the way we live, improve the way we relate with each other, what is the greater good that is going to be there in the future, given what we have now?
And to show that all those steps, they contribute to each other. It's interesting that when Denis said that agriculture and domestication of animals contributed to the establishment of organized civilization, we also see that before the organized civilization we had early forms of religions, basically people worshipping things of nature. And then after an organized civilization we had, suitable environment to create, because of the union of lots of people around the civilization, around a nation, the notion of nation in this case. We had the opportunity, the opportunity to create a sense of a unique God or a single God, which allowed the creation of monotheism. So everyone, each one of those contributions, they also contribute to the next two ones. So it's always a process, a complex process, but a continuous process. And then Kardec talks about a new period of one of those steps, one of those jumps, one of those upheavals, as he mentioned at some point. What he called a new order of things that was happening during, especially in the 19th century, after the contributions of a series of facts in the history of humanity. So this, about in 1715 we had the age of enlightenment starting, so more or less in that, at that time. In 1760 we had the first industrial revolution, then we had the American Revolution and the French Revolution, then we started to abolish the slavery throughout the world, and finally we had something different, a Spiritist Revolution. This is a term used by Arthur Conan Doyle, who is a very, and I say who is, because as Spiritist we cannot say who was, okay? So who is an important character of the history. Yes, he wrote the Sherlock Holmes and many adventure books as well. And during the last years of his life, he was very interested in the spiritual phenomena, or in the Spiritist phenomena, actually, the spiritualist phenomena as was called at that time. And he was, in his book called The History of Spiritualism, he used the term Spiritist Revolution to call all those phenomena occurring throughout the world in different countries through different mediums, and especially to characterize this global process as something maybe sudden for the time of humanity evolution, but also to show the impact that this had on our planet. So Spiritist Revolution, and which is integrated to all those also contributions to the human. As you can see, some of those people, up there we have Emmanuel Swedenborg, The second one is Edward Irving, so people who were with us today morning during the Spiritist tour through London. In the middle we have Andrew Jackson Davis, then Daniel Douglas Home, then the Sisters Fox, and at the bottom we have some of the plays, so the turning tables events that happen in France. And the middle, the bottom we have Daniel Douglas Home lifting, yes, levitation of himself. And then in this house we have like a reconstruction of the day when started to happen the phenomena in the house of the family Fox in the West. And then we can see some of these revolutions actually in the history of Earth. And to make a comparison with this, I use an argument, I guess it's from the Spirit Arago. Yes, Arago's messages. Arago, the Spirit Arago tried to explain this process for us and our capacity to notice them using this comparison with long-term upheavals that we have passed. So we all know nowadays that 5 main, let's say, cycles happen to the Earth: rotation, translation, precession, obliquity, and eccentricity. So when we look at those cycles, some of them has different periods. So the rotation has a period of 1 day. The translation has a period of 1 year. However, the precession has a period of 26,000 years around this. Obliquity, 41,000 years. And eccentricity up to 400,000 years. So all of them are cycles that happen to Earth. Can you notice the rotation of the Earth? Can you notice the rotation of the Earth? Not the rotation itself, but one of the effects of the rotation is say one exactly. I would say one of the examples of the rotation, but of the effects of the rotation, light and darkness. Okay, so the succession of days and nights. This is the effect. So we notice this basically every day, right? Can you notice the effect of translation? Seasons. The seasons. So the succession of seasons in regions that we don't have very well noticed seasons, like in northeastern Brazil, for example, but we notice periods of more rain and periods of less rain. So they are still seasons. But can you notice the consequence of precession, obliquity, and eccentricity? No. Because one of the main consequences of these 3 cycles is climate. And as far as we know, in our whole history of life, the climate of Earth was basically the same. So always, for example, Antarctica was under ice and the Sahara was hot. So was there during our whole life? Maybe yes, basically we could say that yes. And in a few years they will remain. We have some change, of course, as I said, the climate change is happening, of course. But then the main changes driven by those 3 cycles are not noticeable for us. Because our time of life is very short, so we cannot notice because of this. And then those we can feel, and these 3 we cannot feel. So long-term upheavals, like those of moral perspective that happen to Earth, cannot necessarily be noticed by us, because our lifetime is very brief to notice this kind of long-term facts happening on Earth. And
however, so we have this kind of cycles. And it's happening, you have the period for that, and it has a frequency attached to it, and it comes and goes, as a cycle. Yeah? So we can start to see, using this metaphor of cycles, that the human transformation, it's also a cycle. So we have periods of crisis, we have periods of a material and moral progress, then you have a stable period in which you have to segment the advancement you have, and then we have a crisis to improve again. Yeah? And this crisis maybe sometimes, or most of the times, they were not physical. They are in the sense of changing the way we behave, changing the way we see the world, we perceive the world, we interact with the world, and this difference between what we did and what we have to do, it's the crisis. So it characterizes the crisis. The gap that we have to bridge between what we would like to have in the future and what we have now. So that's the moment of crisis, when you perceive that, oh, there's a gap to be bridged here. And for bridging this gap, we develop more materially and morally. And then we stabilize, we get the sediment of this progress that we had in the past. Now we are living another moment of crisis, and as the time goes and as we advance, this period becomes more and more frequent. So we are, the velocity of transformations is increasing. That's why sometimes we think that the crises have never passed. Because we have, throughout our lives, the sensation, this perception that something is changing.
Yeah. And it's interesting that because that's this second period here, the material and moral progress, is exactly that jump that we mentioned. So those upheavals that we had in the evolution of humanity, whereas the other two, so 1 and 3, are those long-term, slow periods of evolution. So there is another thing interesting in this point, just to make sure that we are all getting to the point. Our current moment, today, what do you think? Which point of this we are? Number 1, so we are in the crisis period. By the way, this cycle was proposed before Cristiano, actually. And this cycle was proposed by... This cycle was proposed by the spirit Arago, so I guess Arago and Cristiano were talking at that time. In another reincarnation, of course. Among these numbers 1, 2, and 3, what of these ones do you think that we are now, in our current plan, we are facing now? 1, the period of crisis, the period of material and moral, of rapid material and moral progress, or the period of stabilization?
I think we're in crisis.
In crisis?
The end of one going to
Crisis.
The end of 1 going to, yes, it's interesting, because the transition between 1 and 2, right?
And this transition is really fuzzy. So as are the transitions between the seasons of the year, cannot say, okay, today is summer. And so summer starts today. It is still cold.
You have standards like I guess the 21st of some months of the year,
Yeah.
is the transition, the link between the seasons. But for example, the 21st of September this year, we could say that the 20th, for example, was definitely summer, but there in Birmingham it was raining very strong and very windy, very cold. So I couldn't say that this is summer. Well, that was summer. So it's just a standard that we use. Okay.
So the crisis is, as every stage of the cycle, it's a process. It starts slowly, and you can perceive it approaching, and then it comes to this high place and goes to the valley again, and so on. Yeah, so we have this kind of fuzzy and smooth separation of the aspects here. So it is not really a sharp division.
Yeah, and it's not even an absolute definition, because, for example, if some of you said that we are in a crisis period like that, so would you remain with your opinion if I say, so just compare our current moment with the worst moment of the Second World War? So the Second World War was death, I guess all of us here agree, it was a period of crisis.
Yeah.
Then we had some period of moral progress. We have the agreements of all the countries to make some peace, or to sustain the peace for, I guess, at least some years. And we had many progresses in the technology and science. So maybe we are the second or the third, so this is a bit relative. So it's very complicated to understand this and to apply this to the current moment, to any moment.
So the world is changing. Allan Kardec in the posthumous work says, it is the world, it is the old world, the world of prejudice, pride, selfishness, and fanaticism that is to fly. So we have this kind of breaking. It's going to be this way we see the world. It's going to end. Every day we see a piece of it going down. Yeah? Every day you can see, okay, what we did yesterday is not really useful anymore. We have to learn different things. We can see that what we did in the past is not appropriate anymore. Look at the word I'm using. It's not appropriate anymore because we have a different context now, a different scenario. Each day brings with it some wreckage. All of it will end with the generation that is fading.
Generation?
Yeah, so we have this kind of the period of time that is fading, and another one it's appearing. So you can see that this is not really sharp. It's a transition. It's a fuzzy process, but it's happening.
What about the generation?
Yeah, which generation is that?
Yes.
What's the role? So Kardec said that a new generation is coming. Which generation is that? Is the X, Y, Z, millennium? Which generation is that? So what about this generation? And we are trying to solve this question using the Genesis. So returning to the Genesis, to the book we are going to discuss, we are discussing today, Kardec said that the new generation will not be composed exclusively by eminently superior spirits. But what we can say that, or maybe we are thinking that a new generation, this new world that is coming, will be just for good spirits, spirits that are already perfect. For
It's
example.
important to repeat this bit because it is so.
So the new generation will not be composed exclusively of eminently superior spirits. So there is a chance for us. That's great. But of those who have in progress already, are predisposed to embrace all the progressive ideas, so we have to change our minds, the way we think, and to act to second the regenerative movement. What is that? Is to follow this movement and adapt ourselves towards the changing that is happening. Otherwise, we are going to live in the old generation during the time of the new. Then we have this kind of conflicts of generation.
And I have a question for all of us here. Which generation is more important for this progressive process? The younger ones or the older ones? Or the older ones?
You're talking about people or
In terms of people.
both?
What do you think? The rest of you?
Because we are changing. We are changing.
We are changing, but there is something there
We're
that
changing for
is...
the better.
Yeah, but there is something in this phrase that Denis just read that is key for this question. I don't know if you noticed. Could you read again? The new generation will not be, I have to read a third time because it's very important. When I read that, I had a different comprehension, and when I was proposing this theme for us, I returned to Genesis, and I showed this to Denis as well, and we both were impressed to review our points of views. So there was this phrase there: the new generation will not be composed exclusively of eminently superior spirits, but of those who, having progressed already, are predisposed to embrace all the progressive ideas and apt to second the regenerative movement. So basically, as you said,
change within.
all the generations are important for this process. Because those that we call the old generation today, they're going to be, in a few years, we don't know, in many years, for people who are going to live like 150 years long, they're going to be the future children of our generation. So sometimes we think that we have to take care of the children because they are the future of the world. This is very important now. Maybe I'm saying something wrong, but from the Spiritist point of view, this phrase is wrong.
I agree.
They are the
This
change.
phrase is wrong because we cannot say that children are the only generation that is important for the future. All the other generations will be in the future as well.
As we are returning,
Yeah.
so we
By
believe,
reincarnation.
we believe in the return.
We're returning better beings.
Definitely. So if we do not contribute to the change of the world, we'll have the same word for us. But changing the world into a better, transforming the world into a better one, it's really good for us because we are going to live here in the future.
Yeah. And that's the best part for us, right? Because we are going to participate of these new generations. Just the successions of people. We have, of course, the contributions from spirits of other regions of the universe. But you don't need to worry about where they are coming from. You have to worry about those who are already here and will be the majority of those who are going to be contributing to the progress of this way. Ultimately, you are very
it's very interesting what you're saying because we think that a better world will create a better people. It's the other way around. If we want a better world, we have to be a better people to create a better world. So sometimes we have to think that when this time has come, we're expecting something from external side. It's not. The transformation is not there. The transformation
Is within.
is within. So any time, is that what you say, Marcelo? Is that time Jesus is born in us, and that is the moment. So if we are predisposed to embrace all these progressive ideas, which is not just technology or science or numbers, so it's about love, it's moral. When we do it, that's why we are always afraid about the apocalypse, because we are afraid that, the apocalypse is happening inside. So if you want to have and live in a better world, the promised land, it has to be created inside. So when Jesus came here, he didn't came to change the Carfanaum, or he didn't change the Damascus road, he changed who were walking and living in there. So the same thing happened today. The miracles are happening today. So we don't see it because we're looking outside. And this
Look
movement is
inside.
happening
Yeah.
in here. God is working inside of us, not in there. So I think that's why we are afraid, without reason.
That's why I say change within.
Yeah.
Porque a gente fala em português de forma íntima, cada um individualmente faz, e a gente cria toda essa aula, muda o mundo. Estamos mudando já.
Yeah, we are changing.
That's why we selected this phrase here, so that it explains a little bit of what we're talking about. So the new generation is distinguished by intelligence and reason, usually early, coupled with innate feeling of good and spiritualist beliefs. So we have the intelligence, we are seeing that, so we are progressing intelligence, but also this new generation, so us, that we are returning as better spirits, because we are trying to progress. We are we are in this battle against us to be better persons, to improve ourselves, and then we develop this sense of what is good, what would be a better world, what is the need of the society, how can I contribute to improve the society, how can I be a better person to me, from my own life and from the perspective of the others, and which is that is great, because these are the marks or the characteristics that we can then, using this kind of measurement, we can distinguish who is now a better spirit, who has made the progress, by looking at the feelings that this person has and how they apply intelligence.
I like the Joanna de Angelis when she said to Divaldo, in 2 generations our planet can change. The good ones come and the bad ones, go to live elsewhere. So is a reticle, really, isn't it? So it's that chance to improve our moral aspects, to stay or come back.
That's true.
Yeah, because if not, we'll be out to date.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what are the values? What are the values? Or the things that are really valuable for this new generation?
Characterizes this new generation.
So here we have 4 of them: self-awareness, social responsibility, sustainable thinking, and benevolence. This is also based on the Genesis. So for this, the first 2 values, the self-awareness, and also based on the good person from the Gospel according to the Spiritism. So if you go to the message, the Gospel according to the Spiritism, the good person, in Portuguese, o homem de bem, we'll see that they lists some of the values of the characteristics of a good person, and we summarize this for regarding the new generation. So self-awareness, those persons are, but this new generation is characterized by this conscience examination concerning their own acts. So they are constantly examining what they do, what can they do better, if they were wrong, how to change, how to be a better person. They have this social responsibility, so they think about the whole and not only about themselves. They think about the whole and in the different levels of the human beings, the living beings, the geographic sense, also thinking about the world as in its entire this global aspect. Not only I have to be good to Marcelo because he is near to me, but everything that is in nature is also it's also perceived as valuable. And benevolence, because the happiness or the potential happiness that those people will find is proportional to the benefits that they bring to the others. So happiness is really proportional to what you bring to what benefit you bring to the other. So benevolence, to think about the other and to promote the other to be better also. So that's one of the values. And we can see that this is more like what we would like to have in the future. Yeah? You can see that sustainable thinking, it's really a hot topic nowadays, even in companies. Social responsibility also, so we are doing that even for our jobs, for our job positions, we have to think about this also.
And this shows that we are changing for better.
Yeah. And the Spiritism, that's the sensitive part, I would say. So Spiritism will be not a religion, or not a movement, but would be a way of life. Yeah, will be intuitive. We will not need to teach Spiritism anymore, because people will already live as Spiritists. Yeah.
One asked there, they asked if the Spiritism will be the religion of the future, and he said no. The Spiritism will be the religion of the future. No, the future will be the religions will be the future. No, o Spiritismo será a religião do futuro. No, the Spiritism will be the future of the religions. Yes, sorry, that's the nature.
That's why Kardec said that there are spiritists in every religion. In the book What is Spiritism, he said that Protestants
and Spiritism in its simplest expression also.
Catholics, Buddhists, Brahmanis.
And this is very shocking because for some of us, maybe, because Kardec says that in these 2 books, that if we have one religion, stay in it. And start being Spiritist as well. If you don't have a religion, so look at Spiritism. If it's interesting for you, come to join us. If don't, so look for something that's good for you. Kardec, he simply doesn't care about number of adherents. This is very important. So Kardec was not caring about like to make Spiritism the biggest religion in the world. He didn't even care about Spiritism being religion, science, and philosophy.
It's not a matter of marketing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Competition either.
Yes, so he just wanted Spiritism to be something to maybe to mitigate the sufferings of people, to make some people take a breath during the periods of the dark periods of their lives. So that was the purpose of Spiritism, according to Kardec. That is the purpose of Spiritism.
In the Spirit's book, Kardec asked, the Spiritism is going to be followed, what, many, or just fulfilled? The Spirit replied, one day every religion is going to follow that because it's in our nature. It's a law of nature.
So I'll not read everything here, but just to say that the new generation will find the ideas behind the Spiritism, so the rationale of the Spiritism, in their own behavior. So the behavior of the new generation will be the behavior of the true Spiritist. And then we have recent aspects of transformation in our lives, which is technically or materially speaking, we categorize this kind of material progress in 4 industry revolutions. So we have the first one for the power of mechanization, and in particular here, it was the seed of everything was planted here. Then we have the second revolution of industry with the mass production, Taylor, Ford, and so on. The third revolution of automation, nuclear power and energy, computers, electronics, robotics. And now we have the fourth industrial revolution, material revolution, which is connection. Everything is connected, the networking, so this power of connecting things.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence also, yeah, definitely. Yeah, which is building things. I will not say there are systems or beings, but things that can help us to solve complex problems. That's the objective of artificial intelligence. Not killing people, not having a Terminator or something like this, but to not for killing people, not definitely, but to help people. And if you see that this is, so here it's, I would say the mark or the researchers say that the mark of the fourth revolution was in 2013. That was the beginning of the fourth revolution, and we had this kind of big data and artificial intelligence with the big boom in research and taking an important role in the market. It is still happening, definitely. This is today. But Emmanuel, in the book, In the Realms of Mediumship, he wrote that scientists are today, without realizing it, priests of the spirit. Priests of the spirit. Because, as a consequence of their studies, materialism and atheism will be completed to disappear. Why? Because we lack matter. There is no matter anymore. So what the modern physics, one of the most important contributions of modern physics was killing matter. There is no matter anymore. What we think there was solid, touchable, that's not matter at all, because there are so small particles there that we cannot perceive, but they are there, and it's not really tangible anymore. So believing in matter is the same as believing in God. You cannot see, you cannot feel, you have just to believe and perceive it. You can just perceive. In the philosophical point of view, you can just perceive what is solid. Solid is just a perception. It's not a reality. That's crazy. But that's what science says to us. We have perception of reality. We don't have. That's why we have virtual reality. It's not. It's virtual, but it's still reality. It's real. It's real. You cannot touch. can perceive. It's real. It's real. But it's virtual.
It's also, I guess, the kind of paradox that we find when we arrive in the spiritual world, that we don't know anymore which world is like the real one, the spiritual, the material, which was, I guess, one of the paradoxes that came to the mind of the spiritual Denis when he died and he passed away, and he arrived in the spiritual, the astral city, or our home. So it's this, I guess, this is kind of similar transformation in our mind.
And he said that the future belongs to the spirit, and he was right. He was right, because we have now neuroscience, we have now neurotheology, not theology only, but neurotheology, how we perceive, how we interact with the sense of God. So we have neurological studies showing that when we pray, when we interact with this being, with this thing that we call God, independently of our religion, we behave differently in the sense of our brain, of the brain connections.
Even in health, we talk about neuroimmunology.
So imagine that this is more than 50 years ago, this, more than 50 years ago. And he was right. We have too much, the center of research now.
Already right.
He was already right. Yeah.
Already.
Yeah, so we have
there's some studies as well. Many people studying, many medical doctors studying the experience of near death, showing that the brain is not functional. It's not. There is no brain activity there. Everything, all the equipments show that there is no brain activity there. But then the person wakes up and says, well, actually I was in the waiting room with you guys. I saw that you were late, you arrived here late because somebody called and everything. So they are also bringing this evidence. So again, this approach from one side that is the materialism that shows that the matter doesn't exist, but at the same time show that there's something else beyond the body. Right, that keeps the thinking, keeps the conscious, keeps the memory, the intelligence, and so on.
It's interesting to observe the parallels between what a spirit, let's say a medium, can do. Let's say, for example, to see through the walls, a medium is capable of looking at the white light and of seeing as well the spectrum of light. And then if we observe as well the power that a device like this has, for instance, this device would turn that light off. This device is capable of reaching people on the other side of the world. So I mean, those two things, they are truly working side by side, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then the more we progress, more tools we have to progress also.
Just one point. Are we sometimes too focusing on evolving the scientific evolution? We're so excited, it's a new thing, it all gets us really, wow, what we achieved at a generation as we are. But what about moral evolving? I know it should really work step to step, so once we achieve lots of things in a scientific way, we should not forget that this to be used in evolving us in a moral. So it's great what we achieve in all this scientific world and how powerful it's not us, but not forget that why we're here, evolve in this moral,
There is one interesting example about this, which is in terms of these industrial revolutions, for example, I guess the third one, when we had the development of nuclear energy, we had the condition to create a very powerful weapon, which is the atomic bomb. Unfortunately, we used it twice against ourselves, but we are not using it anymore. So the science advanced so much, but also some moral advancement came at the same time that forced us to think and to come to the conclusion that when we drop an atomic bomb against someone, we are killing all of us. Scientifically explained it, because and that's why from the geological point of view, we confirm it, the scientists in this area confirm it, that when you drop some atomic bomb, it will be, the radiation will be recorded throughout the world, the entire world. So if you drop in the other side of the world, your people will be reached by the radiation. So this is interesting to show that the scientific advancement is also walking alongside with the moral advancement. Of course, the scientific advancement is more rapid, unfortunately, but the moral also is coming.
And the quantum mechanics explains the same. Everything is particle and everything is energy in the same vibration or energy at the same time.
Yes.
One thought here can affect the person, the other side of the world. Then all is connected.
Yeah, everything is connected, definitely. And so to finish, for this part, we have humanity has arrived at a period of transformation, and the earth must rise within the hierarchy of worlds. So we now, in this cycle of transformation that began in the past, but now we're feeling that it's reaching the peak of this cycle. And now, it's...
How does the future look like?
Yeah, so that for thinking now, we have to think. What's the future?
It's a brief journey to a real regenerating world, so don't worry. But we are going to show you some of the characteristics that when we see them, remember the first question that Denis made in one of the first slides? So how can you notice when the regenerating world comes? So now we will show you the characteristics. So when you see on the earth that the earth is covered by those characteristics, then you can say now we are in a regenerating world. So let's see. This is just to explain how Kardec divided the phases of the world's evolution. So all the planets basically pass through the same process. So coming from the primitive world, when we have the initial incarnations of the human spirit, or the human soul. Then we have the trial and expiation worlds, where evil predominates. So you are here, and we are. Yeah. Regenerating worlds, where we have the last expiations. We still have the trials.
We struggle a little bit.
Exactly. And resting, of course, from those last expiations. We have the happy worlds, where goodness outweighs evil, and we have the what we call the divine, celestial, or the heaven worlds, where no evil exists, only goodness exists.
And so we are transitioning between this part here to this to the third stage, and I'll show really briefly this. So the Saint Augustine said that these words are for the penitent souls, that finds calm and rest on them, and can continue the purifying process. So they are not done. This purifying process is not done. And so we have achieved a certain degree of purity, but it's not complete. Yeah? And this is more like when you were really sick, and now you are a little bit better now, but you're still in the hospital. So you're still in the hospital, now you can receive the visits, see your family again, but you're still weak.
Like the regeneration of the tail of the lizard.
Of the lizard.
It's interesting because the purifying process that Denis is talking about here. When you're talking about that comparison with the steps, if you imagine a building without lift, of course, when you have lots of levels, then to go from one level to the higher one, you have to walk through the stairs, right? There is no lift. So, and the evolution of the soul, there is no lift as well. You have to walk through the stairs, or through the steps. So all those contributions that we showed to you are steps. And when we walk through many of those steps, we reach a different and a new level. And those levels are what we call the categories of the world's evolution.
So, and this is the graph you showed before. It's very interesting because if you take the Bible itself as a book, primitive world, the Genesis and the divine world, so the paradise, we are in the process for
walking the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
Showing that the revelations from God, they come through different ways, through different tools, but they're always the same.
Yeah.
in different languages. And this is very interesting. For me, at least, the phrase that will be, the phrase showed on all the regenerating worlds, and probably on Earth, is this. Not to advance, is to fall back. I guess this is the main phrase for a regenerating world. And this phrase is also in the same message, the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is basically saying us that one of the main things that we have one of the most valuable things that we have in the regenerating worlds is time. So if you think that nowadays we are enjoying time very well and very efficiently, so we are definitely in the regenerating world. Do you think that all of us, this is not it's a personal reflection, okay? So do you think, in my case, do I think that I'm using my time efficiently, correctly? I'm using it, producing good things all the time. Am I using it correctly? So this is a reflection for those who are candidates for the regenerating world. And for example, we have some characteristics that maybe are similar to our current world. No perfect happiness is there. Flesh and blood bodies are still used. There are still trials, as I said before. Man is still fallible. So these are characteristics that are similar to our Earth planet. But however, love is everywhere. So the intention of love is everywhere. Better perception of the future. Equity in social relationships. Equity in social relationships. Everyone's recognition of God. So if you think that we have nowadays all those blue characteristics on Earth, then we can say that we are still in a regenerating planet. If not, we have more responsibility to work that way. And then St. Augustine says something very interesting. Compared to Earth, these words are very pleasant, and many of you would be happy to inhabit them because they represent a calm after a storm. This is very, it's a very, how can I say, very reassuring phrase. Yeah, that was looking for a different word. But anyway, it's a very interesting phrase to summarize this, because we are now living in this storm period, but the calm will come for those who worked and made efforts towards this direction. And then
in the future, what is the future? How does the future look like? Emmanuel, Our Daily Bread, chapter 41. It says, prisons will close their doors. Tribunals of justice will remain in silence. There is no work for them. Yeah, no work for them. Huh? There is no judges, no lawyers. Hatred, hatred will be expelled from the world. Machines, that was my point. Machines will peacefully look after the progress of the planet. Look, the progress of the planet and the material progress will be led by the machines. Yes. We will have time to do it.
So your profession is more valuable than
the thing is, do not fear. We have nothing to fear about machines, because they will do the hard part for the material progress. We don't have to do that anymore. We can focus on our spiritual evolution. That's what we're doing. And we are creating things to decide, to solve the easy problems so that we can focus on the complex ones. And what is the most complex problem in our lives is how to live together in society.
Lack of love, fraternity, charity.
That's the most complex thing to do.
And the most beautiful thing about it is that, so again, getting back to the Bible, when you are crossing the desert, where it's the hardest time in our lives, the hardest moment is there when you can see the face of God. So we are not alone now. So even if it's hard for us now, we are just crossing the desert. So
just hang in there.
Yeah. We are not alone.
I would like just to make a request for you all. we already reached the limit of our time, but as you are already participating in this conversation, would you mind if we just keep going the last few slides to finish and then give you less time maybe for the questions? We have a couple of them also. Is that possible? So I agree, I think they are all prepared for the regenerative work because they are very fraternal.
So now it's for you. Just for you. We are stepping a little bit aside now, and that's for you.
Would you like to see a real regenerative world on Earth?
Nowadays, actually, we have something like this in the world, which is the small German village.
Raquel, you are very...
Königsfeld is a small...
you are very lucky because you have the regenerating world and neighbor city.
It's an outlier.
This is actually a city, a village in Germany.
It's a dorf, and in Germany it's like a... I have no idea actually. I think it's close to the border in the south. If I'm not wrong.
I think so.
But I have no idea of the proximity. Sorry about that. But if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken, it's in the south. I think in the south border.
It's an interesting article that was published in the Spiritist Rebel, as I said to you, is an important part of the Kardec's work. In July 1865, so if you want, there is no copyright on any of those slides, so if you want to take photos, I'm saying it's too late, but anyway, you can take photos of this because it's interesting for you to have a look on this article in the Spiritist Rebel, July 1865. Where there is this this city with a very complicated name and very
Königsfeld is it will be the field of the king. The field of the king.
Which is as Kardec said in the Spiritist Review, it's a small German community, so a kind of village with no crimes, no conflicts, no bigger. So Kardec was reporting this during the Spiritist Society of Paris, the first Spiritist center in the world, they had a different way to make the activities. So they usually they used to bring things from the general culture to analyze from a Spiritist point of view. And Kardec brought something from the news, reporting these informations about the development, the social and human development of this city. And he brought this to the attention of the police in the center, the internated police. Then, after some conversations about other things as well, they started the mediumship meeting. And then came the spirit Lamennais, who is a very important spirit for the process of creation, of foundation of Spiritism. And he came with a very long text explaining why this city is so developed and is so evolved. And he said at some point, there everyone knows each other, everyone sees each other, and charity is simple and great. The most impressive example of universal solidarity, the result of true charity. So this is showing to us, what this is showing to us? That we can definitely create a regenerating world on Earth every day. So some people would say that the regenerating world is coming, still coming. Some people would say, no, that the regenerating world on Earth already came, we are already on it. This doesn't matter at all. What's important is that when you make something good to someone, that is the regenerating world. It's inside, it's in every single act of our lives. Internal act, external act. So when we have to produce those acts in order to create something bigger than this, covering the whole planet.
Imagine now that we have Lucy. Lucy was the discovered till now the last ancestor of a human being. It was discovered in Africa. It's catalogued as an Australopithecus afarensis.
In the Marbank province.
So you can see that it was really old, before the Homo sapiens. So imagine that we take Lucy, that was living there by that time, and now we put Lucy to live today in our society.
Who Lucy?
What would you think that she will think about the world? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it better than before? So she was living in a place without fire, without refrigerator, without bed, without makeup,
Supermarket.
without computers, without cell phone, supermarket, without cities. She will say that, oh, we have achieved so much. Sometimes we do not value what we have achieved. We have achieved really good things also. You know? Actually, we need something else.
We usually don't care about the things that we have. We just care about the things that we don't have yet.
We take things for granted.
So,
And that is,
what would you do to achieve that? And that's for you. Look at the pictures, that's for you.
you don't need to wait for a regenerating world. Because you can be the regenerating world right now. Yes, you. Yes, that's serious. Let's try.
So let's try it. Let's try it.
So look at this picture. So there are a lot of people there. Now I would like you to imagine yourself as the driver in the white car. What are you thinking now?
No drive.
Are you congratulating the person that is standing there on the cell phone, jamming the traffic?
When I was in,
Are you?
Are you real?
Are you
Get out of my way.
I'd like just to take your attention for a fact. All those people are common people, like us. None of us here are heroes. None of us here are at least in the cinema point of view. But none of us here are heroes. None of us here are famous people. Are people who are going to make some big revolution, except for Ultima. You were asking But those people are common.
Yes.
Like you and me. Like
you and me.
Eating rice and beans every day.
No, not that. But if we think that we can create a regenerating world through simple and small acts, isn't this impressive? Because we can make one big revolution in the world by doing small things. We don't need to make let's make an event, not for only us here. Let's make an event for, 50,000 people to make them know Spiritism, make them know that Spiritism is the future of everything, convert them to Spiritism. Is this necessary?
Yeah.
No.
Is this going to make some essential and some eternal change in people's life?
No.
We don't know exactly, but the act that you might have in that car could make a change for that person. You can avoid, for example, some constraining situations with a person because you don't know what she is texting. And you can ask, but she is creating a place, she's disturbing the traffic now. Yeah, but this is her problem. Your problem now is trying to not hit her with your car, for example. Or to, what could be worse, not to hit her with your thoughts, which is cause more damage, maybe, than a car.
This isn't really just blocks in the road that we have
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember that you are not alone in the car. She is not alone on the street.
Yeah.
And we share the same spiritual space also. We share the same physical space, but more than that, we share the same spiritual space. So what we do in the spiritual space goes through the whole spiritual space also. So we send this energy, this thought, and it goes without any delays to everywhere. We are sending this. Remember, we have to remember that our actions and thoughts are going to be registered in the spiritual space.
And another thing here is that God has such a big justice for us. He's so good. He's so very good with us that He creates this kind of opportunities to us if not every single day, every single minute sometimes. So He's giving us all and successive chances to make the right thing. Because sometimes He knows, or it knows, because the Spirit is God is it. It knows that we are not going to maybe to do the right thing at the very first moment. Probably not in the second moment, but we have still the chance to make difference.
It's important to remember that the positions can be changed very easily. Today I can be in the car, but tomorrow I can be the person with a problem crossing the street.
Yes.
Distraught by a problem or news or something that you don't even think.
Yeah.
When you cross without.
I remember, because just a quick comment, I remember a fact that happened to me one day. I basically didn't use anything about the lecture or Spiritist lecture I was watching, because the talk was about tolerance. Then someone beside me started to try to comment with me about the lecture when we had to be silent, and I was thinking, oh my God, what's happening to me? Be quiet, this person is just asking things. Oh, tolerance. So this kind of things occurs. So even here, in this very moment, we could be asked to try to do the right thing. Also, this other situation. What can you see in this bus? That's not train. There is one man, there's lots of people there.
So your attention is directed towards what here? This man. Okay. Can you perceive the face of this woman?
Yeah.
Is she looking at the man?
Yeah.
Maybe she is just looking at the bus stop, or the train stop, the next train stop. Yeah. Because she's trying to see, because there's so many people. She's trying to see. Or to read some.
Or the advertisement.
And we see things with one glass.
Yeah.
So it depends.
We see what you want to see.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Or we are forced to see because of our cultural things.
Yes,
that's why
well,
manners are also important for moral evolution of the world. Remember, manners, intelligence, and moral aspects.
And people's values as well. Because when I looked at the picture, I didn't connect that the lady was looking at the guy.
Yes. Definitely, we have different perceptions, which is great, because then you have to respect the different perceptions and learn from each other.
And not to judge anyone.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Yes, what a contradiction.
Yeah, definitely. So you have a church there, and no refugees welcome.
But in this case, was the phrase "no refugees welcome" written by the church?
I doubt it, but
or by someone
exactly.
Who is
the
against
church,
Exactly.
against
Or
the
someone,
acts of the church?
maybe it was refugees welcome and someone else.
No.
Or could be, I don't think it could be somebody, nothing to do with the church.
Yeah,
just like that.
that's what, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, because the people that
Yes.
have to do with the church never write things like that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And this could make us think that
Don't judge.
we can say no refugees welcome. This this is a bad phrase.
Yeah.
Church, this is a good thing. So, can we say definitely that a bad situation will not be linked never with religion, for example? This is another reflection for us. Everyone who are inserted in the religion is therefore a good person? Is religion will religion necessarily take someone to the good way?
Not necessarily.
As an individual?
But the funny thing is the color is exactly the same of the
The point is, we cannot reconstruct the action that started this.
Yeah.
We cannot reconstruct it. So why we try to do that for to persons? So you see someone, and we immediately you start thinking, okay, he is like this because of that. He did it wrong to me because he was evil. Yeah, he meant to do that. And we try to reconstruct the fact, the event, without having the full knowledge of it.
And pay attention, because you constructed this according to your internal beliefs and your feelings.
Prejudice.
Be careful with this.
And you even
It's
project
very soft
others, your
Definitely.
fears, your
Yeah.
frustrations, and so on.
Dennis, could be weak. Please stop saying that's not a
Yeah, that's not-
It's
yeah,
not
that-
say no refuse is welcome.
Yeah.
You said this, sorry.
Yeah. Also, we have a
It's
limited point of view. Yeah.
In judgment.
Definitely.
It's just part of the picture, isn't it?
That's why the spirits, a phrase that the vices of humanity have deteriorated his constitution of the human being, of the spirit, and created for him wants or desires that are not real needs. So we are creating to us needs that are not real. Our reality is full of illusions that we create because we are more focused on something that is not valuable, and we are forgetting the valuable things. For example, spending time together. Finish. Where do I want to be when the future arrives? Because the future will arrive. It will. So
Repeat the question.
where do you want to be when the future arrives? So the future is going to be there. We are going to happen to the future, not the other way around. So we are going to happen to the future.
When is the future?
That's why the question starts by where do I want to be? So it's independent of when the future.
It's independent of time.
Only-
Could be 5 minutes later when we close everything here. Can be
Future is now.
5 years in the future.
Actually, at this very moment when I'm saying now, this is the future of the moment when I started to say this, what I'm saying right now. Or when I was in the middle of this phrase. So the future is always coming.
We have this from the Spiritist book. Spirit is when it comes to be rightly understood and identified with the beliefs and habits of the human race. We transform our customs, usages, and social relations. So we have, and then in the Kardec also says that Spiritism will create a new order in the society. So we have, for example, communism, capitalism, socialism, and maybe Spiritism, because we have the new generation. The Spiritism will be the way people behave. So in the future, maybe we have not capitalism, not communism, not socialism anymore, but Spiritism as the way of the society will be organized. Imagine that. Not Spiritism as a religion. As a religion, we talk about that, It's Spiritism as the values. We share the values we present, the values we live. So that will be a new order, a new way of organizing society. You can call it the name you want. Give it the name you want.
Love.
Heaven.
Heaven. Love, heaven. And what's self-improvement? The key. So self-improvement, and then we return to the very first point. There is a need to initiate the effort of regeneration in each individual, according to the gospel, according to the teachings of Jesus, with the task not always available of self-education. If we educate ourselves, we are educating part of the society, because we are part of the society. The society is part of the world. Then if we educate ourselves, we educate part of the world.
I think there is something, a mistake in this slide, because gospel, so gospel Christianity, 1/3 of humanity, and what about the other 2/3 of humanity?
That's great. We are talking about the gospel, so we are talking about Jesus, and Christianism is not the most popular religious anymore. Yeah? And the other part. So we are not talking about Jesus as a person. We are talking about Jesus as values. And the values Jesus taught us, they are shared by everyone who is aligned to the sense of this new generation.
Don't you remember that French guy that, don't remember his name, they say, we are spiritual, we are not a human being living experience, but a spirituality human beings live at the moment. So when you think like that, so every people is included in the same, no different religion, but we are just spirituality and loving each other and doing the best for us.
And I received a interesting lesson from a colleague. He told me, he asked me about my religion, and then I said Christian. Because at the very moment I don't say Spiritist, because I still want to, but for most of them is something incomprehensible, so I started Christian, then I explained later what's Spiritism, and I said Christian, and then, oh, so we are from the same religion. So are you Christian? No, I'm Muslim. So why we are from the same religion? Because we are both Abrahamic. We grow from the same tree of religions. So he was looking at the common point between us. I was looking at the different point between us. So we had to stop doing this and follow the example of this guy.
Did you finish? Yeah. Improvement of public and private life. That's something that we...
This is for you, for your research area.
So the moral teachings of the gospel, the gospel is just the shape that the moral teachings had by the time of Jesus. So the gospel, it's not the book, it's an experience, it's a life, living this active life, living the values that Jesus taught us. The moral teachings of the gospel constitutes a code of rules on how to behave in every circumstance of private and public life. So we have to use this code like a guide to achieve this regeneration we were talking about. If we are looking at the teachings of Jesus, putting that in our pockets, or forgetting about it, we're not going to achieve this regeneration any sooner. So we have to use that in our public and private life to achieve this so long-awaited regeneration.
And then, in these times of social media, we can no longer hide anymore. So the scientific evolution is forcing us to make the moral evolution. Because now, as maybe you can see, many newspapers and many websites and then dedicated to the news, we see lots of people coming to very constraining, difficult situations in front of public audiences because they made something in the social media that came to the public, something constraining, something embarrassing, because they were not aware that they have been filmed, recorded in any of those social media. So we have to be, even people common like us, common people like us.
So we already have the tools for surviving in this new world. So we already have the tools. We have just to use them. Thank you.
And just the two questions we received very quickly to answer to them. The first one, isn't evil misconceived as something to be avoided when in reality it's a cry for love and help? At least in my opinion, definitely yes, because we have some perceptions from Spiritism that actually the evil is just the lack of the good. So when we have evil, is what's missing to us to reach a good situation in our evolution. So and it's also the ignorance of the moral teachings that can, through Jesus or through any other missionary world. And definitely is it's someone asking for love and help. And the other one, survival of the fittest is a way of explaining evolution in the non-rational part of nature. For the rational part, which comprises the human beings that are aware of what's right and what's wrong, the law should be survival of the kindest.
And so we have this kind of, it was really interesting because this question captures the sense of what is the natural law, the divine law. So we have, God has law, has this law that is present and it's valid and operating the whole universe. And you have different aspects of the law. So you have a material aspect, a physical aspect, for example, gravity. And it's one of the physical aspects of that. And also we have the law of attraction, which is also material or physical aspect of the law. But we have, for example, the attraction of the spirits, of the intentions, of the feelings. That's the spiritual aspect of the same law. Now for the cause and effect, we have the cause and effect for the physical world. In the chemical reactions, for example.
Action and reaction.
Action and reaction, cause and effect also.
But cause and effect was
from the Spiritism, yeah. And then, point of view of Spiritism, we have also that. So the cause and effect, like I do something, I receive the consequence of that. I have to expect the consequence of that. And for evolution, it's the same. So we have the evolution of nature. Physical beings are evolving as they and are surviving as they adapt. The better adaptable ones, the better they adapt to the environment, more they are going to survive. And it's the same if we're talking about the spiritual life. So the more we adapt towards the good, what is good, what is good for me and for the society, the more rapidly I evolve also. So it's the same law, the law of adaptability. We can adapt physically, we can adapt psychologically, and spiritually also. So that's the same law in different aspects. And he said that the survival of the kindest, definitely. The kindest, the one that is more adapted to the teachings or to the moral values that we were talking about. Okay. Any more questions? No, not to be the case. Thank you very much.